and welcome back to Monster Minis. Today we'll be building a Normandy D-Day diorama in 1/35th scale. A truly bucket list diorama for any scale modeler. I'm using 2 artist canvas as the base for the diorama and then some leftover insulation foam from a remodel project to build the beach. A friend of mine saw my D&D campfire video and asked me if I could do a Normandy scene in honor of his grandpa. His grandpa was a mortarman that landed at Omaha Beach with the first ID on D-Day. The PillBox is from Verlinden. Verlinden stuff still inspires me and reminds me of being a kid, picking up the Verlinden catalogs and thinking about what could be. I know there's nicer stuff out there now with 3D printing, but I still think Verlinden's the gold standard. He told me this spectacular story about how his aunt was touring the Big Red One Museum in Normandy and recognized her mother in a picture at the museum. It was known in the family that his grandpa lost a picture and a letter in the fighting on the beach. Completely unbelievable that this picture could be found on the beach and then recovered and placed inside the Big Red One Museum. So my friend asked me if I would be willing to make a Normandy diorama depicting his grandpa storming the beach so that he could give it to his dad for Christmas. I was incredibly honored to even be asked to build such a thing. It was such an amazing story and such a great opportunity, but I was scared. I wanted to make sure that I did this scene justice. I mean, we're talking about the largest amphibious invasion in history and would be modeling a real life story for a personal friend and his family. I felt the pressure mounting. But like I said, it was an opportunity to do a bucket list diorama. I mean, I think any scale modeler wants to do a Normandy scene and just needs to find the right inspiration. Fortunately, Dragon makes a 29th Infantry Division Omaha Beach D-Day kit. Considering this was going to be a 1st Infantry Division scene, we'll have to make some modifications to the unit patches on these guys. I elected to build the guys in sub-assemblies, leaving the weapons on the sprues, painting the heads separately, and only assembling their bodies. Deciding which figure and which pose to make my friend's grandpa was an interesting decision. I certainly went through a few iterations on what made the most sense and how I would be able to model a real person that the family would know. So I knew my friend's grandpa was a mortarman, and I wanted to place him in an action scene with the mortar to capture that detail about him. Dragon Kit did not come with a mortar, so fortunately Tamiya makes a 35th scale gun and mortar team kit. With some modifications and using some pouches and equipment from the Dragon Kit, I think we can make these guys look like they're supposed to be there. But I needed to figure out a way to capture this moment when the picture fell out of his pocket and onto the beach. And when I saw this pose of the second man on the mortar team covering his ears, I thought, man, this is it. He's handing mortar rounds to his teammate, and then he's turning away and covering his ears. What better physical opportunity to have something fall out of your pocket than a motion like that? Gecko Models makes a really nice Normandy Beach hedgehog set, which I acquired for this project. They also make a really nice Normandy Beach log ramp set. I drilled holes and pinned all of the troops and their heads and placed them in cork as a painting handle. And here I'm going to file off the 29th Infantry Division patch so I can paint in the Big Red One. The kit, all in all, the kit was really nice. The guys went together really well, but there were some gaps on the arms and the legs and some of the poses that they were in. So I got out my UV resin to fill in the gaps and smooth it out. All credit for this idea goes to Ninjon. He is 100% right in that this is the easiest way to seal gaps for painting. It takes about 3 minutes under the UV flashlight for this to cure. I couldn't believe how effective it was at closing it up. The primer just went over so smooth. I primed all the troops, the hedgehogs, and the log ramps off camera with Mr. Finishing Surfacer 1500 black, thinned down with Mr. Color Thinner 400. To base coat the hedgehogs and the log ramps, I went with Ammo's Rot Brawn and Ammo's Red Primer Light Base. To paint the troops, I went with Ammo's U.S. Forces Uniforms World War II figure set. It was a challenge to find good reference photos for what the 1st Infantry Division's uniforms looked like for the Omaha beach landing. Most of the pictures were in black and white, which made color identification difficult. But even looking at reproductions and reenactments, the color variation in the uniforms was all over the place. So I kind of took my best shot at what I thought the colors would be. I went with brown for the pants and khaki for the jacket. I base coated it first with a sand so that the khaki would have a better chance at having a desaturated look. Everybody's skin was painted with Ammo's Flesh Tone set. I'd also recently acquired some of the flesh colors in Ammo's Atom range, and I wanted to use those as well. Once I was happy with the skin tone, I went ahead and painted in the whites of their eyes so I could come back in and clean up any mistakes. I did most of this with the wet palette, really thinning down the colors so that I could come in and get these really nice blends with the different colors from the top to the bottom. After I was happy with the base color, I came in with Secret Weapon Miniatures Flesh Wash. This is an acrylic wash, and I really like how it goes and sits in the recesses and really just unifies the skin color from top to bottom. I use Secret Weapon Miniatures Green Black acrylic wash to add a green tint to the khaki jackets. I feel like Steven Spielberg's decision to film Saving Private Ryan's Normandy scene in a desaturated color palette has made it to where that's how I see it. When I was working on the color scheme for these uniforms, I kept seeing that they needed to be desaturated. And I'm pretty sure that's because of the cinematography of Saving Private Ryan. I guess when our reference work is black and white, that's the best thing we got. I use Secret Weapon Miniatures Sepia Wash to darken the pants and get them to the brown that I was looking for. I really wanted to make their faces lifelike, so I came in with some really striking colors for those highlights. I'm going to be using Ammo's Atom Prussian Blue for the 5 o'clock shadow, violet around their eyes, and red around their lips. This should add a really nice color variation across the face, in addition to the highlighting on the bridge of the nose, the cheekbones, and the forehead. Secret Weapon Miniatures Baby Poop is just the best color to put over ammo pouches and gear. Also glazed in some leather on some of the bigger pouches to give them more of a brown look. Used Ammo Satin Black to paint the chemical protective equipment bag. I went with an off-white for the gators. I'm going to come back with a wash and really bring these to life. I'm going to be using Ammo's yellow-green as the base color for the Big Red 1 insignia. Used Ammo's Dio dry brush paint in gunmetal to finish their weapons. At this point, I wanted to take one look at an assembled model and make sure it looked like I wanted it to before I came in with the final unifying wash. I really liked how his 5 o'clock shadow came out. This scene is going to be a gift for someone who knew this person in real life. So I didn't want to just put a miniature out there standing with his face in full view for my friend's dad to look at it and instantly think, that's not my dad. So the decision to pose him with his head down was done so that the actual family members that would be viewing this scene wouldn't immediately try to recognize things in their family member. By just having him there with his head down, my hope is that when they view this scene, their mind will fill in the blanks and he will look the way he should to them. That being said, I needed another way to differentiate him from the rest of the troops. U.S. troops in World War II were known to decorate their equipment and adorn their gear with things from home. So it turns out that our hero here is from Ohio and is a big fan of the Ohio State University Buckeyes. So I figured in England, he was able to acquire some thread and fashion an Ohio State University logo on the back of his jacket. Not only is this just a cool detail to differentiate this model from the rest of them, it's also a personal touch to let everyone know who this is. I used Ammo's Field Gray Shadow and Field Gray to paint in the Ohio State logo. And after I had the general shape in, I outlined it with red. After that, everybody got a coat of VMS matte varnish. To paint the bunker, I'm going to go with my standard German gray color modulation workup. That starts with Ammo's dark gray base, working up to the gray base, highlighting with gray light base, and finishing with gray highlight. This is a straight top-down highlight with more of a panel modulation towards the top. I weathered the PillBox off camera using Ammo's black wash, streaking rust effect, light rust wash, streaking grime, and then I used the dark brown wash for green vehicles on the troops. I really liked how these different weathering effects were able to bring out the damage in the PillBox, and I really liked how the streaking grime looked like a very coastal structure. I used Ammo's oil brusher in dark green to just push the green in the soldiers' jackets a little bit more. They were nicely desaturated, but I wanted to push them just a little bit more into the green spectrum. So I thinned down some of this dark green and applied it as a wash. Also used the brown wash for green vehicles on the gators to give them that really nasty look like they just come out of the water. And with the troops finished, it was time to move on to the base. I marked out the locations where the logs would sit down into the foam, and then drilled those out with a drill bit so I could get the log to set down into the groundwork. And attach them with foam-safe superglue. I used Ammo's Terraform Premium Texture Beach Sand for this scene, and I have to say I got 2 different bottles of this because I thought I was going to need it, and I'm happy I did because the first batch really came out blue, whereas the second batch that I came in over the top with had the correct color and texture. I don't know what happened with the first one, but since I needed a base coat anyway, it didn't really matter. And after the sand was dry and I located where everyone was going to go, I drilled some locating holes and super glued them down. I wanted to do water on the scene since we were going to be on the beach, but I have never done a 2-part epoxy resin, and now was not the time to learn how to do that. So instead, I used a UV resin. To build a dam for the water, I used acrylic sheets stuck to the base with silicone so I could remove them later. I didn't intentionally buy white silicone, but it ended up working because it ended up looking more like foam, so I'll take the happy accident, and poured it in here to simulate the water. I then cured it with a big UV lamp like they use in a nail salon. I really wanted to capture the moment that the picture of his then girlfriend, future wife, fell out of his pocket on the beach. So I had this sheet of 35th scale German propaganda posters that would be in the right scale for a picture, albeit a little big. So I ended up selecting this picture that's up here in the top left of this woman to represent the picture that fell out of his pocket. I haven't seen the picture, so I took a little bit of an artistic license with this one. I added some mortar rounds in there carrying tubes on the beach as well, so we'd have some gear in the surf. After the resin had cured, I came in with Ammo's acrylic water for dioramas to add some water texture on top of the resin. This stuff goes on in a nice thin layer, and then you come back in with a knife and draw in the wave texture. This dries completely clear and gives a nice water texture. I was really happy with how it worked. I wanted to give this a really nice finish since it's just a artist canvas board with insulation foam on top. So I got a really thin oak veneer and then used double-sided tape to stick it to the scene. All credit for this idea goes to Night Shift, who's been using this to perfection in his scenes. After I had all of the veneer on, I trimmed the sides, used some wood filler to clean up the corners, and then sanded it down in preparation for stain. Used Ammo's 6mm static grass with a static grass applicator for the vegetation up near the PillBox. When I was building this, I had a bunch of detail up here by the PillBox. There was a motorcycle, there was a machine gun, there was a bunch of equipment, and the more I looked at it, the more I didn't like it. The more I didn't like that there was additional detail up here at the PillBox that was taking your eye away from the troops on the beach, which is what this scene is all about. So for one of the first times in my modeling career, I deleted things from a scene because I didn't think it should be there. I used a couple different colors of grass from Gamer's Grass to simulate all of the coastal grasses around the PillBox. Used some balsa wood strips to cut down some fence posts for the barbed wire. Used Army Painter's Battlefield razor wire for the fence. In cinematography, they talk about framing scenes and that you want to frame scenes in thirds. I tried to take that advice into account when building this scene and framing it into thirds, where a third of the scene was the troops on the beach, which was really the story I was telling. The middle third of the scene was no man's land, and the final third was the PillBox. I used Ammo's Europe Earth modeling pigment to simulate some sand at the entryway to the PillBox. I wanted to make it look like there had been foot traffic in and out of there at some point. Three coats of Minwax's Poly Shades and Bombay Mahogany to give that nice gunstock look. I used Ammo's oil brusher in white to paint the tops of the waves and to paint in the foam along the beach and around the troops. I chose the oil on this one because it made it easier to come back in with a brush and thinner to remove areas where I didn't want it. Building this scene has been an absolute honor and a privilege. It's been pretty incredible to take my hobby of miniature modeling and painting and use it to tell a true historical story for someone's family. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.